Welcome to the Daily Climate Show. Coming up, power companies are unprepared for the extreme weather events which climate change will bring, a warning from the UK's energy regulator. Parents call for better climate education in schools as it's revealed children are turning to social media for their information. And plans for New Zealand to tax cow and sheep burps in the effort to cut emissions. Welcome to the Daily Climate Show, where we track the changes happening to our planet, report on the impact those changes are having and look for the search for solutions. Well, we're in negotiations with companies. Well, we're talking first a little bit about Storm Arwin. That happened last November. Now, power companies are being said that they're unprepared in the face of extreme events. And obviously that's coming from the energy regulator, that's Ofgem, because thousands of people, as I said, were left without power for more than a week. And that devastated parts of the country, as I said, last winter. Now, Ofgem's chief executive said energy firms need to be much better prepared for that extreme weather, which will get more frequent and intense as the effects of climate change hit home.
We're in negotiation with those companies about the investment we need, which will include an acceptance that with climate change, there may well be more extreme weather events, there may well be more storms, and they need to be better prepared for that. But my point is, they weren't good enough this time. They need to use their budgets to fix it, and they need to get ready for this winter.
Well, Sky's Fraser Maud is in County Durham, one of the areas worst affected by Storm Arwin.
There's no doubt that Storm Arwin was an extreme weather event. Here in the northeast of England, it generated winds gusting up to 98 miles an hour, the strongest for around 30 years or so. The Met Office said it was one of the most powerful and destructive storms in a decade, and it caused chaos. The road network, the rail networks, all disrupted, hundreds of thousands of trees uprooted, and power lines brought down, leaving around 1 million homes without power, thousands of them for more than a week, hundreds of them for more than 2 weeks. And today, Ofgem, the industry regulator, has criticised some of the electricity network operators, saying that they need to up their game. They need to be better prepared in case events like this happen again. They need to have better communication. They need to have better systems of providing compensation for people. In terms of them preparing for the future, many people say they were ill-prepared for the storms of Arwin and Barra, which came shortly afterwards. But it's difficult to predict when these storms will happen again. Most people think that it is because of climate change, but the experts say that that can't be empirically proven at the moment. The understanding that we have is that many weather systems that reach this country, many of the extreme weather systems, start over the Atlantic, and the Earth's excess heat is stored in our oceans. That heat is what generates the cyclonic effects, which allow storms like this to take shape in the first place. So clearly it looks as though the climate change situation does have an impact on these extreme weather events, but it's still unclear as to exactly what that impact is and how we can best prepare for the future.
Well, next, children are turning to social media to learn about climate change because the topic isn't covered enough in schools. Now, this is by a poll by Public First of more than 1,000 parents, and they found 50% said climate change was the most important issue to children. 42% of parents said their child had spoken to them about protecting the environment. Most parents said their children should be taught about climate change, and more than 70% wanted their child to learn about it at school. Well, our correspondent Adele Robinson joins us now. So, Adele, what education around climate change is in place at the moment?
Well, there is some, but actually teachers, that particularly the ones who were spoken to as part of this poll, have said that it's woefully inadequate. They say that parents believe that their children is being taught about climate change and environment and about environment issues, but actually some of the people spoken to, the pupils as well as the teachers, have said that it's been a year since they've had one single lesson on climate change itself. Climate change education as well has been described by one senior teacher in this survey as being a tick box, one lesson thing. It is in the curriculum in various aspects. It's in science and geography. And in 2025, in 3 years' time, there'll be a new GCSE in natural history. And that will be focusing on protecting the planet. So it's heading in the right direction, but there's not enough right now is the synopsis. But there is this real appetite for it right now. And, you know, teachers are saying that even if it was introduced, the timetable's already packed. It's not realistic to fit more in. So they want to see a holistic review of the curriculum, not just about the quantity, but also the breadth across the curriculum in climate change issues.
And I suppose my next question then is, if you don't have that climate education in place, what are some of the dangers people could see?
Well, exactly. There are risks because this appetite is huge. There's an immense enthusiasm among school children. They want to learn about this. They've wanted to learn about this more than any other generation. But what they're doing is some of them are turning to online resources, which is in its entirety isn't necessarily a bad thing, but social media, it may be, because they're exposed to misinformation, to bias, and it's not the ideal grounding that you would want for an education in this subject, especially when there's a fairly large movement out there of climate change deniers. Teachers are worried that as well, if they're getting their information from social media, it sort of implies that it's just a trend, that they might lose interest, they'll move on to the next thing. It needs to be more in a formal education setting. The fact, though, let's focus on the positive.
Yes.
They want to know more. They're talking to their parents about this more than anything else. I think 13% of parents said their children had talked to them about immigration, 15% Brexit, but 42% were speaking to them about environment issues, and that's only a good thing.
So interesting. Adele, thank you so much. Well, let's get some of the day's other climate news now. And at least 10 people have died and 3 are missing after flooding in central China. Around 1.8 million people have been affected by storms in the province of Hunan since the start of the month. Although China often experiences flooding during the summer, the state media there says some monitoring stations are reporting historic levels of rainfall. Globally, more intense tropical storms are on the rise as a result of climate change, leading to increased flooding. A vigil's been held outside the Brazilian embassy in London for the missing environmental journalist Don Phillips and his colleague Bruno Pereira, who went missing in the Amazon on Sunday. Now, the pair were on their way back from a trip to a remote area of the rainforest home to isolated indigenous tribes. Helicopters, boats and drones are now being used in search of them after local authorities were criticised for a slow initial response. Now, the world's first zero-emissions commercial hydrofoil boat has been launched by a Belfast-based engineering company. Electric-powered hydrofoils hoist the boats above water using the same technology as developed by America's Cup racing yachts. Now, the company behind the vessel says its system is 90% more energy efficient than smaller boats powered by fossil fuels. Now, President Biden will today use a promise of economic growth spurred by clean energy to try and revive a US commitment to Latin America, which fell away during the Trump administration. Opening the summit of the Americas in Los Angeles last night, the president pledged to help neighbouring economies grow, saying investment in renewable energy would be central to the plan. And later today, he's due to meet the Brazilian president, Jair Bolsonaro, who's seen as a sceptic on climate change, and he'll then lay out a plan for an environmentally friendly economic partnership with other countries across the region. Now, the Biden administration has put climate at the heart of its domestic policy plans.
The American partnership will tackle the climate crisis head-on with the same mentality we're bringing to the work in the United States. When I hear climate, I think jobs. Good-paying, high-quality jobs will help speed our transition to a green economy of the future and unleash sustainable growth. Jobs in developing and deploying clean energy. Jobs in decarbonizing the economy. Jobs in protecting biodiversity of our hemisphere. Jobs provide dignity of being able to feed your family, give your children a better life, and envision a future of possibilities.
And finally, New Zealand has announced plans to tax cow and sheep burps. New Zealand is home to just over 5 million people, along with 10 million cattle and 26 million sheep, and almost half the country's total greenhouse gas emissions come from agriculture. That's mainly methane coming from livestock. And under the proposals, farmers will have to pay from 2025, making it the first nation to charge farmers for the methane emissions from the animals they keep.